The series begins by showing an FBI agent named Peter Sutherland boarding the metro and giving his seat to a mother and her little daughter. While the metro is stopped at a station, Peter notices a man wearing a black hoodie entering the metro while carrying a backpack. Shortly afterwards, the man then exited the metro a few seconds before the metro resumed running, but he deliberately left his backpack under the passenger seat. Peter, who felt suspicious, then checked the backpack and found a time bomb that would explode in a few minutes. Peter immediately acted quickly by pulling the emergency brake lever to stop the metro and evacuate the passengers before the bomb exploded. Peter's heroic action saved the lives of many people, although he was seriously injured in the process due to being quite close to the bomb when the explosion occurred. Peter seemed to have trouble moving, but he was relieved to find the mother hugging her little daughter safely near the debris that showed the metro's serial number. Soon after that, Peter spotted the bomber in the crowd behind the police line and chased after him. Peter managed to catch the bomber and got into a pretty fierce fight with him, until Peter managed to remove his jacket and found a snake tattoo on his abdomen, although he couldn't see his face clearly. Unfortunately, the bomber managed to escape when a car accidentally hit Peter. 1 year later, after the metro bombing incident, Peter is now working in the basement of the White House as an operator in charge of receiving calls from the night agents who need help. Peter works as a telephone operator from 8 at night until 4 in the morning, and he is actually required to report to the Deputy Director of the FBI, Jamie Hawkins. But Peter seems to be more loyal to Diane Farr, the presidential chief of staff who gave him the job after the FBI ostracized him since the metro bombing incident. On the other hand, a young woman named Rose Larkin appears to welcome back her aunt, Emma, and her uncle, Henry Campbell, who have just returned from Rome. After the death of her parents, Emma and Henry are the only family Rose has, so Rose is very fond of them, especially since they are also very kind to Rose. Rose, a cybersecurity entrepreneur and CEO of her own startup company, had just been fired from her company and went bankrupt, so she was forced to stay at Emma and Henry's house. In the middle of the night, Rose, who was asleep, suddenly woke up because she heard Emma and Henry talking about the country being in trouble and the people in the White House who could not be trusted. Rose also heard Emma telling Henry that they should warn Osprey and burn some important documents. Rose then approached them and asked about the power and phone lines being down, but Henry instead gave Rose a note and told her to dial a phone number and say a few words in sequence. Emma tells Rose to go to their neighbor's house down the hill and borrow their phone, while she and Henry will face some people who have been staking out their residence. While Emma and Henry prepared with their weapons to fight the intruders, Rose quietly slipped out of the house through the back door. At the same time, 2 intruders were already inside the house and one of them managed to kill Henry by strangling him. On the other hand, Emma got into a fierce fight with one of the intruders, but the intruder managed to knock her down and shot Emma 6 times. While trying to escape, Rose accidentally saw the face of one of the intruders who also happened to see Rose, so he then rushed out of the house after Rose. Rose finally arrived at her neighbor's house, but the house was unoccupied, so Rose was forced to break the window to get into the house. Fortunately, the phone in the house was still working, so Rose immediately dialed the number given by Henry and was answered by Peter, who was on night shift. Peter seemed quite surprised because for the first time in the last year he worked as a telephone operator. He finally got an emergency phone call from someone who mentioned the night action. Peter then asked Rose a few questions, but a panicked and confused Rose didn't understand Peter's questions at all, so Peter then realized that Rose wasn't the night agent. Rose told Peter about everything that happened, and at the same time, Peter immediately sent the police and the FBI agents to the address given by Rose. Upon knowing that Rose was in danger because she saw the face of one of the intruders who was currently hunting her, Peter then gave directions to Rose to hide until the police arrived. Peter deliberately did not close his phone and tried to calm Rose, who was panicked and frightened because the intruder almost managed to find her hiding place. Shortly afterward, the police finally arrived and told Rose that they found no one in the house. On the other hand, Peter gets a phone call from Farr who tells him to keep Rose away from Hawkins and take Rose somewhere before they interrogate Rose. At the crime scene, Rose is devastated when Hawkins informs her that Emma and Henry are dead. Hawkins intends to question Rose about what has happened, but Rose immediately becomes suspicious when Hawkins tells her that he works at the White House. Soon after that, Peter finally arrived at the scene and told Hawkins that Farr had assigned him to take Rose somewhere. Hawkins initially disagreed with that, but Peter said that the president had authorized Farr to handle the matter, so Hawkins had no choice but to let Peter take Rose away from that place. Peter then took Rose to his apartment so that Rose could change her clothes and pack for a few days in case the situation worsened. Upon arrival at the apartment, Peter told Rose to get some clothes that she needed while he put Rose's cell phone in the safe and took some weapons. Peter also placed a surveillance camera in his apartment that was connected directly to his cell phone to monitor the situation in case someone broke into his apartment. While picking up clothes, Rose accidentally found a newspaper clipping that reported about an FBI agent who was considered a traitor, but his crime was not proven because he was killed in an accident. Rose intended to find out more about the FBI agent, but Peter arrived and immediately put the document away. Rose, who accidentally saw Peter's White House ID, then asked if Peter worked at the White House, even though Peter claimed that he was an FBI agent. Peter explained that he was an FBI agent who worked in the basement of the White House as a telephone operator. Rose then became suspicious of Peter and asked that she be taken to the police station, but Peter managed to convince her by saying that he would risk his life to protect Rose. While heading to the car, some men confront Peter for believing the fake news about Peter being the perpetrator of the metro bombing a year ago. Peter easily knocked them down and took their driving license, then called Farr to settle the matter. Rose then asks why they accused Peter of being the perpetrator of the metro bombing, and Peter explains that he happened to be on the metro when the incident occurred, while insisting that he was not the perpetrator because he was the one who stopped the metro to evacuate the passengers before the explosion occurred. Peter then revealed that the FBI agent Rose saw in the newspaper clipping was his father, who was considered a traitor, even though his crime had not been proven at all. Peter also adds that his father hasn't had a chance to explain anything because he was killed in an accident. On the way, Peter realized that they were being followed by the intruder who was chasing Rose, so he then told Rose to call the night action phone number. After asking for help from the operator who was on duty that night, Peter told Rose to take the wheel of the car while he pulled out his gun as the intruder started shooting at them. After a tense chase, Peter and Rose finally managed to escape and arrived at their hideout. While Rose was sleeping, Peter, who was on guard, saw several people who broke into his apartment through the surveillance camera connected to his cell phone. Peter immediately called Farr, who then ordered several agents to check Peter's apartment. However, when the agents arrived at Peter's apartment, they found no one there, so Peter tried to find clues to identify the intruders and found that one of the intruders was wearing a signet ring. Peter then informed Farr and asked her to investigate it immediately. The following day, Peter took Rose to see Farr and Hawkins and asked her to tell them everything. But Rose is hesitant to tell the truth and tells Peter that her aunt mentioned about some people in the White House who cannot be trusted. Even so, Rose believes in Peter, so she asks Peter to stay by her side. Meanwhile, in Wisconsin, a middle-aged woman named Denise was surprised by a couple and their baby girl who appeared in front of her house. The wife, Ellen, tells Denise that the house used to be her childhood home and she wants to show the house to her husband, Dale, while reminiscing. The kind Denise then allowed them to come in and look around the house. After entering the house, Dale asked Denise for permission to change his baby's diaper in the toilet, while Ellen told Denise about her dying grandmother and her memories in the house. However, Denise soon found out that Ellen was lying about the house, but just as she was about to evict them, Dale suddenly appeared and killed Denise. Dale turns out to be the intruder who chased Rose and broke into Peter's apartment, because he was wearing a signet ring similar to the one Peter saw through the surveillance camera. After getting the object they were looking for, Ellen and Dale then left the baby girl they kidnapped at Denise's house and rushed back to Washington, D.C. to finish their work. Meanwhile, Hawkins and Farr seemed annoyed that Rose refused to explain anything to them in detail and assumed that Rose might be deliberately hiding something from them. An annoyed Rose left the room, followed by Peter, who tried to convince her to tell Farr and Hawkins everything. However, Rose assumed that they might kill her if she told them the truth, so Rose chose to remain silent. Soon after that, Peter took Rose to the Rimborn Hotel where Rose would be staying for a while. Peter assured Rose that she would be safe at the hotel as trained agents from the Secret Service would be guarding her around the clock. Upon knowing that Rose would be bored since she was not allowed to use her cell phone or the internet, Peter sent some books to Rose through room service before he left the hotel. Later that night, Peter, who was assigned by Farr to investigate Emma and Henry's background, discovers that Hawkins was their mentor when they were still in training. Peter immediately informs Farr, who is then surprised because Hawkins acts as if he never knew Emma and Henry Campbell, which further confirms that Hawkins is indeed hiding something about the secret mission being carried out by the Campbells. Elsewhere, Ellen, who was curious about the object taken by Dale at Denise's house, then opened the bag to find out and found a stuffed elephant in which a nanny camera was installed. Ellen intends to check the camera footage, but Dale forbids her and immediately puts the stuffed in the bag. Shortly afterward, Dale got a phone call from his boss, Gordon Wick, who gave him an address. In addition to Wick, Dale also received a warning from Wick's client, Ashley Redfield, who told him to immediately finish his work before the situation got worse. The following day, Peter, who intended to meet Rose at the hotel, looked panicked when he did not find a single Secret Service agent guarding the hotel. Peter then asked the hotel receptionist, who informed him that the Secret Service agents had left the hotel some time ago. Upon hearing that, Peter rushed to Rose's room and immediately took her away from the room. At the same time, Ellen, disguised as a maid, entered Rose's room, but found no one there. Ellen then told Dale that Rose had left, so Dale immediately moved towards the emergency stairs because he had turned off all the electricity in the hotel so that Rose could not escape using the elevator. On the other hand, Peter and Rose, who escaped through the emergency stairs, were finally confronted by Dale, who had anticipated their escape route. Fortunately, Peter and Rose managed to escape after breaking the glass and jumping out of the window. After getting out of the hotel, Peter took Rose to a clothing store while hiding from the pursuit of Ellen, who had received information from Dale that their target had escaped. Inside the store, Rose stole a cell phone and told Peter to call Farr to ask why they had pulled the Secret Service agents from the hotel. Farr told Peter that Hawkins was the one who had ordered the Secret Service agents to leave the hotel, and they were currently searching for Hawkins' whereabouts, who had suddenly disappeared. Farr then asked Rose and Peter's current location and intended to pick them up. But Rose told Peter not to trust anyone in the White House and proposed that they conduct their own investigation to uncover the truth about Emma and Henry's secret mission that got them killed. After what happened at the hotel, Peter finally agrees to do the investigation and keep their whereabouts a secret from anyone, including Farr. Rose and Peter begin their investigation by going to Emma and Henry's house where they were murdered. While looking for clues in the house, Rose tells Peter that her aunt mentioned Osprey, some files, and the engineer. In addition, Emma also says that the country is in trouble and they only have 7 days to prevent something terrible from happening. They then got a clue about a hard drive that Henry might have hidden somewhere, and then rushed to the forest to find the hard drive. After a long drive, they finally arrive at Henry's cottage located in the middle of the forest and find the hard drive hidden in the chimney wall. But unexpectedly, Rose was unable to hack into the files stored on the hard drive because it was protected by a security system equivalent to the cybersecurity system used by the National Intelligence Agency. So they would have to have at least a very advanced supercomputer to hack into the security system. When he saw the name of the folder on the hard drive, Peter was reminded of the Metro bombing incident a year ago because the folder name was the serial number of the Metro that was the target of the bombing. On the other hand, Hawkins was seen secretly visiting Wick at his residence, while Dale and Ellen were ordered by Wick to carry out the next mission. After getting a clue about Emma and Henry, who might be investigating the truth behind the Metro bombing incident, Peter then called Farr through the night action phone line so that their location could not be traced. Peter told Farr about the hard drive they found, and also about the possibility that Emma and Henry were investigating the Metro bombing incident before they were killed. Farr tells Peter to take Rose and the hard drive to the White House for safety, but Peter refuses and asks about Hawkins. Farr then informs Peter that they found Hawkins' body in a field in Maryland and confirmed that Hawkins was murdered. The scene then switches to the past and shows Peter meeting Farr at the zoo a year ago. Farr offered Peter a job working in the White House after the bombing because she thought that Peter had great skills and was very dedicated to his work. Peter, who had always been ostracized by his colleagues at the FBI because his father's case, immediately accepted the offer, and from then on, Peter trusted Farr and was very loyal to her. Rose and Peter had an argument because Rose did not agree that they should hand over the hard drive to Farr, even though Peter tried to convince her that the White House had all the resources they needed to unlock the encrypted files on the hard drive. However, Rose still doesn't trust Farr, so Peter tries to prove to Rose that Farr is on their side. Meanwhile, after Hawkins' death, the president finally reveals to Farr that she assigned Emma and Henry to a mission before they were killed. The next day, Peter and Rose, who chose to camp in the forest while monitoring the situation around the hut just in case. Peter tells Rose that last night he contacted Farr via cell phone, which could prove whether Farr is trustworthy or not. Peter says that Farr would have sent someone to kill them if she was involved in Emma and Henry's murders because Farr was able to track their location through the phone call. Peter was almost certain that Farr wasn't involved in the murders at all, but shortly afterward, they saw Ellen approaching the cottage while pretending to be injured and asking for help. On the other hand, they also see Dale sneaking around the side of the cottage holding a gun, which proves that Farr intentionally tracked their location and sent the assassins to kill them. Rose and Peter managed to escape and record the license plate number of the car driven by Dale and Ellen. Upon knowing that Farr can track their location via cell phone, Peter then tells Rose to throw away his SIM card and ask for help from his best friend, who is a policeman, Cisco, to track the license plate number of the car. Meanwhile, the director of the Secret Service, Ben Olmora, assigned a veteran Secret Service agent, Eric Monks, as part of the protective detail in charge of protecting Maddie Redfield, the daughter of the Vice President, Ashley Redfield. Ben asked the leader of the protective detail, Chelsea Arrington, to mentor Monks, as Monks had just returned to duty after undergoing rehabilitation to heal his gunshot wound. Chelsea then introduced Monks to Maddie, who immediately recognized Monks as the Secret Service agent who saved the president some time ago and suffered a severe wound. Upon knowing that they need a supercomputer to open the files on the hard drive, Rose and Peter devise a plan to utilize the state-of-the-art computers in the White House, even though it is very risky. However, they had no better option, so Peter agreed to the plan. Soon after that, Peter went to Farr at the White House and handed over the hard drive while telling her that Rose ran away while he was taking a shower at the gas station. Since it would take 5 hours to open the file, Farr advised Peter to go home and sleep, while she would order the police to trace Rose's whereabouts. On campus, Maddie, who is attending an art class, seems to get appreciation from her lecturer, Paulo, who thinks that Maddie has a talent in art. Maddie seems to be attracted to Paulo, who is still quite young and handsome, especially since Paulo also supports her to develop her talent in painting. Later that night, Maddie, who was hanging out with her friends, was abused by a young man who hated Maddie's father. During the incident, Monks slipped and the young man managed to attack Maddie, although in the end Chelsea and her team managed to immobilize the young man. At the White House, Peter tells Farr that Rose wants to talk to her on the night action phone line, and as part of their plan, Peter secretly steals Farr's ID card so that he can access the computer room that only Farr and the president can enter. While Rose distracts Farr by talking to her on the phone, Peter tinkers with the White House supercomputer to give Rose access so that she can hack into the security system on the hard drive and open the file. Peter is almost caught in the act, but fortunately, they manage to get all the information stored in the file and delete it immediately. But unexpectedly, Peter forgot to unplug the connector from the hard drive, so Farr soon found out that someone had hacked into their cybersecurity system. Farr confronted Peter about Peter's fingerprints on the connector, but Peter cornered Farr by revealing that the location of their hideout in the forest was tracked down after he called Farr. Upon hearing that, Farr immediately has someone scan her phone and informs Peter that the president assigned Emma and Henry to investigate the metro bombing incident a year ago, but they were killed before they could uncover the truth. The National Intelligence Agency assumed that Omar Zadar and the People's Independence Front were behind the bombing, but Zadar denied the allegation, leaving the president with no choice but to assign the night agents to investigate. Farr swore that she wasn't the one who had sent the assassins to their hideout, but she believed that someone high up in the White House was involved in the metro bombing because whoever it was, they had enough access to pull the Secret Service agents guarding Rose and to get spyware on her phone. Peter assumed that Hawkins might be the traitor, but Farr said that she had to investigate the matter further, and therefore, she needed the hard drive. After clearing up the misunderstanding, Peter finally decided to trust Farr and took Farr to see Rose. On campus, Paulo had shown his interest in Maddie, which made Maddie happy because she thought that Paulo really liked her. In reality, Paulo has a specific goal to get close to Maddie, and he seems to be working with someone to achieve that goal. The scene then switches to the past and shows Monks, who was still in charge of guarding the president. At that time, someone tried to shoot the president, who was giving a speech in front of the factory workers, but fortunately, Monks managed to protect the president, although in the process he was seriously injured because his shoulder was shot. In the present, Chelsea, who was upset that Monks acted carelessly when they were escorting Maddie at the bar, then tried to find fault with Monks to get Monks fired from the Secret Service. Chelsea thought that Monks might be using drugs, but Monks insisted that he was clean because he had intended to return to work as a Secret Service agent. Meanwhile, Farr agreed to let Rose keep the hard drive and gave Peter and Rose permission to investigate an address they found in the file, then left. Rose and Peter then visit an old woman named Lorna, who is known as the engineer, and she is Emma and Henry's colleague in charge of gathering information about the building schemes of some public infrastructures located in the same area. Because the scheme was complicated, Lorna offered to help Rose and Peter. The three of them then went to the area that was suspected to be the next target, and Lorna explained to Rose about the building scheme as well as a map of the electricity and gas networks in the area. Lorna, who suspects Peter of working in the White House, then tells Rose to check Peter's name in Emma and Henry's files to confirm her suspicions. Although Rose trusts Peter completely, she still does what Lorna says and they don't find Peter's name in the file. On the other hand, Peter, who was in the toilet, realized that there was an underground metro network in the area because he felt vibrations when the metro passed through the place. After hearing Peter's explanation about the metro bombing, Lorna concluded that the target of the bombing was actually a gas pipeline in the area, and if the bomb exploded as planned, the explosion would destroy 2 city blocks and kill more people. Peter did manage to foil the plan a year ago, but Lorna believes that whoever is behind the bombing will be back to carry out their plan in the next few days. So she tells Peter and Rose to find out what they failed to achieve a year ago regarding the metro bombing. Shortly afterward, Peter gets a phone call from Cisco, who's informing him of Ellen and Dale's location, but unfortunately, they find no one when they raid the house. Later that night, Ellen and Dale went to Lorna's house after receiving information from Wick, and they were ordered to kill the old woman because Lorna was Emma and Henry's partner. Lorna then took her gun and tried to fight back, but she was no match for Ellen and Dale, who were professional killers. The next morning, they bury Lorna's body in the forest to eliminate traces. Meanwhile, Peter was finally able to sleep peacefully for a few hours after days of trying not to let his guard down because he had to protect Rose. When Peter woke up from his sleep, Rose asked about the metro bombing incident, and Peter explained that the bomber was a man in a black hood who had a rattlesnake tattoo on his abdomen. Peter said that he had informed the investigators about the man, but they were unable to find anyone with these characteristics. Shortly afterward, Peter got a phone call from Farr informing him that someone had indeed put spyware on her cell phone, so she decided to change her phone number. Farr then asks about their investigation, and Peter informs him about Emma and Henry, who may have known the target of the bombing and were killed before being able to uncover the truth. Upon hearing that, Farr tells Peter to hand over all the results of their investigation to the FBI so that the FBI can follow up on the investigation. But Peter seems indecisive because he doesn't trust anyone other than Farr. Rose and Peter, who tried to find the bomber through CCTV footage hours before the bombing, had to feel disappointed because the bomber seemed to deliberately avoid CCTV cameras to eliminate his tracks. But surprisingly, Peter found Chelsea in the CCTV footage at a cafe and immediately recognized Chelsea as the Secret Service agent. Because Chelsea spoke into the microphone for 5 hours while looking out the window, Peter then assumed that Chelsea was on a mission to escort someone in that place. Peter then concluded that the bombing was not a terrorist attack, but an assassination attempt on whoever Chelsea was escorting. On the other hand, Maddie and Paulo, who have fallen passionately in love with each other, decide to have a secret date at Paulo's place, so Maddie plans to escape from the supervision of her protective detail. Soon after Maddie returns to her dorm room, her father arrives and they get into an argument over the incident Maddie had at the bar some time ago. Redfield tells Maddie to focus on her studies, but as a student who wants to enjoy the pleasures of youth like other young people, Maddie then protests to her father because Redfield is too protective and always restrains her. In addition, Redfield also always imposes his will on his daughter without ever caring about Maddie's wishes. Even Redfield actually never supported Maddie to study art because, according to him, it did not benefit him politically. Although Maddie often fought with her father, she loved the moments when Redfield hugged her tightly with a smile, even though Redfield did it only to gain popularity for the sake of his political career. Chelsea, who knew this, sympathized with Maddie, but she could not do anything to help Maddie. Therefore, Chelsea tried to be a good friend to Maddie, and she also really cared about Maddie. Soon after that, Peter and Rose came to Chelsea at Maddie's college to ask about her mission during the metro bombing incident. Peter told Chelsea that they were investigating the bombing on orders from Farr, but Chelsea refused to tell anything about the mission to Peter or anyone else because it was against their rules. Even so, Chelsea said that she would report about their conversation to her superior, and if her superior gave permission to share the information with the FBI, she would contact Peter directly. After Peter and Rose left, Chelsea contacted her superior, Ben Almora, and told him about Peter asking about her mission on the day of the metro bombing incident. Upon hearing that, Ben told Chelsea to tell Peter that Maddie Redfield was in no way related to the metro bombing incident, and forbade Chelsea to explain anything about her mission that day. Ben, who was annoyed that Peter was conducting an unofficial investigation on Farr's orders, confronted Farr in her office. But Farr instead cornered Ben about the Secret Service's incompetence in guarding an important witness like Rose Larkin, and also about the Secret Service's cybersecurity system that was successfully hacked by someone. While Ben and Farr were engaged in a heated debate, Chelsea told Peter that her mission that day was completely unrelated to Maddie. Upon hearing that, Peter then asked Chelsea about Osprey, but Chelsea chose not to explain anything even though she seemed to know about Osprey. Afterward, Peter intends to visit Hawkins' wife for information, while Rose tries to find clues about the killer who's wearing the signet ring that used to be the emblem of the Yugoslav royal family. At the White House, Ben tells Redfield and the president about Peter and Rose coming to Maddie's college and questioning his agent about the metro bombing. Redfield is visibly upset because he thinks Peter could be putting his daughter in danger, but Farr assures them that Maddie is safe and that Maddie has nothing to do with Peter's investigation. Ben and Redfield then urge the president to arrest Peter because they need to protect Rose, who is an important witness and a target for assassination. Upon learning that, the president sent them out of the room as she wanted to discuss the matter with Farr. Farr explains to the president that Peter and Rose intend to uncover the truth by continuing Emma and Henry's investigation into the metro bombing. But the president seems unhappy to hear that and orders Farr to take them to the White House immediately. On the other hand, Peter went to Hawkins' wife, Cynthia, to ask her some questions about Hawkins. Cynthia initially refused to explain anything to Peter, but after Peter told her about his past when the FBI arrested his father and treated him as if he was a dangerous criminal, Cynthia finally decided to tell Peter about the investigation conducted by her husband before he died. Cynthia revealed that Hawkins found inconsistencies while investigating the metro bombing, and his investigation led to the government contractor called Turn Lake Industries. Cynthia added that the day before his death, Hawkins met with the director of Turn Lake Industries and he seemed to have uncovered the truth behind Emma and Henry's murders, because after that Hawkins was found murdered. On the other hand, Rose managed to find information about Pavlik, the owner of the signet ring worn by Dale. Pavlik was declared missing while criticizing the United States Defense Agency for using the services of the government contractor to carry out missions in the Balkans. Soon after that, Pavlik was declared missing and Rose concluded that Pavlik was killed by people working for Turn Lake Industries, who had also killed Emma and Henry. Rose then informs Peter, who has just arrived, and after further investigation, Peter and Rose discover that Wick, who is the director of Turn Lake Industries, has had a good relationship with Redfield for years, and Turn Lake Industries is the company that funded Redfield's campaign when he was elected governor and vice president. Meanwhile, Paulo, who turns out to live in the same house as the Metro bomber, tells him that Maddie will come to their house without her protective detail as Maddie and Paulo had planned. Upon hearing that, the bomber seemed happy that their plan was almost successful, although Paulo felt guilty for manipulating Maddie, but he had to do it to achieve their goal. Later that evening, Maddie, who was going to an art exhibition, asked Chelsea for advice on choosing an outfit for her. Chelsea assumed that Maddie intended to impress a man, so she chose a navy evening dress for Maddie and lent her a necklace to enhance Maddie's appearance that night. Maddie thought that Chelsea would be off for the night and Monks would be in charge of escorting her, but unexpectedly, Chelsea suddenly told Maddie that she would be escorting Maddie to the art exhibition. Upon arrival at the art gallery, Maddie greeted her friend and had a brief chat with her. Shortly afterward, Maddie told Chelsea that she wanted to go to the toilet, and since Maddie did not come out of the toilet, Chelsea then went in to check the situation and did not find Maddie anywhere. Chelsea immediately gathered her team members and tasked them to find Maddie as soon as possible. Upon knowing that Maddie might have planned her escape, Monks suggested that they investigate Paulo because he saw a pretty intense closeness between Maddie and Paulo. While Maddie escaped from her protective detail to date Paulo at his residence, Ellen and Dale secretly followed Peter and Rose leaving the campus. Ellen and Dale apparently managed to find Peter and Rose's location through a tracking device installed by someone in their car. On the other hand, Maddie and Paulo, who were making out, were suddenly shocked by the appearance of the bomber, who then killed Paulo and revealed to Maddie that, all this time, Paulo had only manipulated Maddie for his own purposes and he never loved Maddie. Soon after that, Chelsea and Monks arrived at Paulo's residence and found Paulo's dead body and Maddie's things, but the bomber had kidnapped Maddie a few minutes before they arrived. Meanwhile, Peter intends to go to the White House to submit the results of their investigation to Farr and the president, and take Rose to Cisco's place because he assumes that Rose will be safer with Cisco than at the White House. Cisco, who was about to go on a date with his girlfriend, finally agreed to help Peter and was forced to cancel his date. Upon knowing that Paulo might be involved with Maddie's kidnapping, Chelsea and Monks rushed to search Paulo's belongings on campus and find some sketches of the bomber's face drawn by Paulo. But unexpectedly, when Ben arrived at the murder scene, Ben relieved Chelsea of her duties and assigned Monks to lead the investigation so that they could find Maddie as soon as possible. Upon hearing that, Chelsea tried to give an explanation to her superior, but Ben said that Chelsea had screwed up and Redfield needed a scapegoat to blame for his daughter's kidnapping. Monks then pleaded with Ben to allow Chelsea to assist him because Chelsea knew Maddie very well and memorized almost everything about Maddie, which was needed in the investigation. Ben agreed to let Chelsea be involved in the investigation, but he emphasized to Chelsea that Monks was now the team leader and Chelsea had to obey Monks. Chelsea and Monks then searched Maddie's room and found flyers from the environmental organization called New Leaf and revealed that Paulo was the head of New Leaf. They also found a photo of the bomber on New Leaf's social media pages and assumed that the bomber was a member of New Leaf. Chelsea and Monks then concluded that Paulo might have a close relationship with him because they found some sketches of him drawn by Paulo. Meanwhile, Peter finally arrived at the White House and relayed all the information regarding Turn Lake Industries and the Metro bombing to Farr. Peter also added that he questioned Chelsea because that day she was escorting someone who was the target of the Metro bombing, but Chelsea emphasized that Maddie was in no way related to the Metro bombing. Peter then revealed to Farr about Redfield and Wick, who may have worked together to commit the crime, while warning her about the second attack that would occur in a few days. Upon learning that, Farr tells Peter that she will arrange a meeting with the president to discuss the matter, but she accidentally reveals that she has been in cahoots with Wick and Redfield. Peter, who realized this, immediately contacted Rose and told her to immediately go to their meeting point on the dock, while he would try to escape from the White House. On the other hand, Farr immediately contacted Wick and informed him that Peter and Rose had learned the truth. Farr plans to arrest Peter and give her permission to Wick to kill Rose and Cisco. On the way to the dock, Cisco realized that they had been followed by Ellen and Dale, so he then drove his car at high speed. After escaping their pursuit, Cisco dropped Rose off at the side of the road and told her to continue on foot while he would distract them. However, Dale apparently realized this and he told Ellen to catch up with Cisco and kill him, while he would pursue Rose, who was on foot heading to the dock. Dale caught up with Rose and immediately attacked her, but Rose tried to fight back as hard as she could until Peter finally arrived in time to save her. Peter and Dale then engaged in a fierce battle, but Peter soon became overwhelmed. Fortunately, Rose showed up to help him and managed to take Dale down. They then worked together to defeat Dale, and Peter finally managed to grab Dale's gun and corner him. However, Peter seemed hesitant to shoot Dale, so Dale took the opportunity to lower their guard by mentioning how he killed Emma and Lorna. Upon hearing that, Rose then becomes enraged and beats Dale, while Peter decides to kill Dale, even though he had intended to arrest Dale to reveal the truth. At the White House, Farr deliberately made Peter a suspect in Maddie's kidnapping to taint his name and make it easier for them to arrest Peter if he became a fugitive. The next day, Peter and Rose, who are hiding on Peter's godfather's boat, hear news from the radio broadcast about Cisco being killed, and Peter seems devastated by the death of his best friend. They also hear that the White House has made Peter a suspect in Maddie's kidnapping, and Peter assumes that it is Farr's plan to get rid of him. On the other hand, Ben ordered Monks and Chelsea to investigate everything about Peter, who had been named as a suspect in Maddie's kidnapping. The scene then switches to the past and shows Redfield, who was still pioneering his political career. Redfield, who was a single father, had to take care of his daughters, Maddie and Sarah, while pioneering his political career. At that time, Maddie, who was playing by the pool, fought with Sarah because Sarah grabbed her toy. Maddie then complained to her father, but Redfield told Maddie to give in to her younger sister. An upset Maddie then went back into the house, while Redfield was completely unaware that Sarah had splashed into the pool, where she eventually drowned. In the present, Monks and Chelsea, who are searching Peter's apartment, accidentally find a birthday card that someone sends to Peter every year and intend to investigate the sender to trace Peter's whereabouts, even though they believe that Peter is not at all involved with Maddie's kidnapping. Elsewhere, Maddie is being held in a room, and the kidnapper makes her hold a newspaper, then takes her picture before he leaves without explaining anything to her. At the White House, the president decides to relieve Farr from the investigation into the murders of Emma and Henry, as well as Maddie's kidnapping, because Farr is unable to control the situation. Farr then became angry because she assumed that the president no longer trusted her, even though she had supported her since they were in college and she had always tried various ways to help the president with her agendas for the welfare of the American people. However, the president thinks that Farr is too busy with so much work that she has to handle, so she then asks Farr to focus on tasks related to presidential agendas. On the other hand, Chelsea and Monks went to the New Leaf office and got information about Mateo, the man with the rattlesnake tattoo on his abdomen who turned out to be Paulo's lover. They also find out that Paulo intends to recruit Maddie to the New Leaf so that Maddie could amplify the New Leaf's message about environmental awareness. While Peter and Rose are discussing their next plan, Wick meets Farr and Redfield in secret and shows them Maddie's video sent by the kidnapper demanding Redfield to reveal to the public that he had planned the metro bombing a year ago and covered it up in various ways when things didn't go according to his plan. The kidnapper also demands Redfield to reveal the people involved in the bombing plan and threatens to kill Maddie if Redfield refuses to confess to his crime. Redfield intends to confess his crimes in order to save Maddie, and then denies them by utilizing his reputation as a state official loved by his people. However, Farr and Wick disagree with Redfield because they are also involved in the case and they don't want their involvement in the metro bombing to become public. Farr then gives the stuff that Dale took at Denise's house and tells Redfield to watch the nanny cam footage embedded in the doll, so that Redfield knows that Maddie intends to humiliate her father in front of many people and will not hesitate to destroy Redfield. Elsewhere, Maddie tries to scream for help and she accidentally punches a hole in the wall and finds something inside. Unfortunately, the kidnapper, Mateo, arrives, so Maddie immediately covers the hole in the wall so as not to be spotted by Mateo. Maddie then asks why Mateo killed Paulo, and Mateo explains that he only manipulated Paulo to get Maddie, and he doesn't care about Paulo at all. When Mateo said that he intended to take revenge, Maddie tried to convince him that she could help him bring down Redfield while emphasizing that all the positive things Redfield had shown to the public were lies. Maddie also tells Mateo that she hates her father and that she has a video that could destroy Redfield's reputation if it becomes public. Seeing Mateo, who seemed to think about it, Maddie then told Mateo where he could get the video, and Mateo immediately left her. Meanwhile, Peter and Rose managed to get a clue about Colin Worley, the FBI agent being investigated by Hawkins for being linked to the metro bombing. However, before the FBI could interrogate him, Colin was found dead in his apartment. Due to the lack of information about Colin that could be obtained online, Rose suggested that they go to the Public Records Office to retrieve all the data about Colin Worley stored there. At the White House, Chelsea and Monks reported the results of their investigation about Mateo to Farr and Ben, and suggested that they start investigating Mateo, who might have kidnapped Maddie. Upon hearing that, Farr became outraged that Monks and Chelsea were instead investigating someone else, when they should have focused on investigating Peter, who was named as the prime suspect in Maddie's kidnapping. Nevertheless, Farr then informed Wick about Mateo and sent his facial sketch to Wick, who apparently knew Mateo. Elsewhere, Mateo tells Maddie that Denise was found murdered last week and the police found a hole in the basement and concluded that the killer might have taken something from the basement. Upon hearing that, Maddie seems surprised because she did hide the stuff in the basement, and the only person who knew about it was her therapist, Dr. Hennings, which suggests that Dr. Hennings had leaked the information to someone who then ordered the killer to take the stuff. At home, Redfield watches the footage on the nanny cam and is shocked to discover that Maddie deliberately set up the nanny cam on her toy to record his abusive behavior when he hit Maddie because she refused to do his bidding. In the video, Maddie also blamed her father for Sarah's death, but Redfield told the public that Sarah's death was Maddie's fault and sold the tragic story to gain popularity and public support. The following day, Ellen confronted Wick at his residence and informed him that Dale was dead. Wick planned to stop the mission, but Ellen then threatened him because she intended to take revenge on Peter. Wick then made an offer to Ellen by telling her to kill Mateo, while he would find a way to bring Peter to Ellen so that Ellen could kill him and avenge Dale's death. While Rose entered the public records office to get a file on Colin, Peter, who was waiting in the car, was suddenly approached by a group of young punks who recognized Peter as a fugitive. Upon knowing that they would report his whereabouts to the police, Peter then hurriedly left the place. Rose, who had just come out of the public record office, looked panicked because she couldn't find Peter. She became even more panicked when the gang of young punks suddenly confronted her while insulting Peter. Rose tried to defend Peter, but they treated her harshly. Fortunately, Peter arrived in time to help Rose and immediately took Rose away from the place. On the other hand, Chelsea and Monks went to Peter's godfather, Jim Wilson, at his residence to seek information about Peter. But Jim told them that Peter had cut off contact with him for the past few years since they had different opinions about Peter's father. Jim, who is a reporter, then conducted an investigation about Peter's father, who was suspected of leaking confidential documents belonging to the FBI, and concluded that he was the one who had leaked the confidential documents based on several facts he had collected. Peter, who thinks that his father is innocent, then becomes angry with Jim and refuses to establish any contact with Jim. In their conversation with Jim, Chelsea and Monks managed to get information about the boat that Jim and Peter usually used when going fishing, and they then decided to look for Peter's whereabouts there. On the boat, Peter and Rose get information about Colin, who works for Turn Lake Industries, and Peter concludes that Turn Lake Industries deliberately got rid of Colin after he failed to carry out a mission related to the Metro bombing by disguising the murder as an overdose. They manage to get a lead on an address belonging to Colin's relatives and rush off to investigate. But unexpectedly, Chelsea and Monks manage to find their location after a tip from Jim and arrest them immediately. The scene then switched to the past and showed Colin escaping from Peter, who knew that he was the perpetrator of the Metro bombing. Upon arriving at the apartment, Colin is surprised by the presence of his twin brother, Mateo, who has just been kicked out by his girlfriend and is now homeless. Shortly afterward, Colin got a phone call from Wick telling him to stay hidden while he and Redfield would clean up the mess after Colin failed his mission, because Peter stopped the Metro suddenly before it reached their target. Colin then went to get rid of the clothes he used during the Metro bombing, and once Colin arrived at his apartment, he found Mateo dead from an overdose. Colin was devastated by his twin brother's death, but he soon realized that someone was trying to kill him and mistaking Mateo for him. Colin rushed to swap their identities so that he could stay alive as Mateo. In the present, Peter and Rose try to convince Chelsea and Monks that they did not kidnap Maddie, while emphasizing that they are investigating the Metro bombing. Rose then told Chelsea to check the file on Colin Worley, and Chelsea then showed the document to Monks. After examining the document and learning that they were planning to carry out another bombing in 2 days, Chelsea and Monks decided to help Peter and Rose find Mateo's address in order to save Maddie and also stop the impending bomb attack. Elsewhere, Mateo has Maddie read out the threat he made to Redfield while recording her, and sends the video to Wick because they ignored his first threat. Maddie tried to convince Mateo to work together to bring down her father, but Mateo threatened to kill her. After Mateo leaves, Maddie tries to get a clue by digging a hole in the wall, hoping she can find out the location of her current whereabouts. Meanwhile, Wick, who has obtained the video footage, decides to keep it a secret from Redfield on Farr's orders because Redfield will definitely comply with the kidnapper's request to save Maddie. Wick then revealed to Redfield that the kidnapper was Colin Worley, who had taken the identity of his twin brother, Mateo. Wick added that Mateo might want to avenge his twin brother's death by kidnapping Maddie. Wick explained that his employees had managed to find Mateo's address and it was only a matter of time to find Maddie. Upon hearing that, Redfield told Wick to immediately find Maddie and save her, but surprisingly, Farr secretly gave orders to Wick to kill Maddie because Maddie had found out about her father's crime related to the Metro bombing. On the other hand, Chelsea and Monks managed to find Mateo's storage unit where there were documents that contained everything about Maddie, which indicated that Mateo had been planning the kidnapping for months. Elsewhere, Maddie manages to find the serial number code, but Mateo arrives so she covers the hole. Mateo told Maddie that her father did not respond to his threats as if Redfield did not care about Maddie and let her die. Upon hearing that, Maddie tried to convince Mateo to make another video and let her compose her own plea, then send the video recording to her father's personal cell phone. Mateo seemed to consider Maddie's offer because he had no other option to deliver his message to Redfield directly. While Monks and Rose are investigating the security company Mateo works for, Chelsea reveals to Peter that the target she was escorting during the Metro bombing was Omar Zadar, codenamed Osprey. Upon learning that, Peter concluded that Redfield had intended to kill Zadar by planning the Metro bombing so that Zadar's death would later be considered an accident, rather than an assassination attempt. However, Redfield's plan failed because Peter stopped the Metro abruptly before the Metro reached the target, so Redfield intended to carry out a second attack to kill Zadar. Chelsea, who knew about it, was more or less grateful to Peter because he had saved many people, including Chelsea, who was escorting Zadar, who was having a secret meeting at the cafe. At the same time, Chelsea received an anonymous message from someone who sent Maddie's video footage. In the video message, Maddie secretly gave Chelsea a code regarding her location. Unfortunately, Chelsea realized the code and asked Peter for help to investigate the clues given by Maddie. At the White House, Farr was visibly upset when the president did not allow her to participate in a meeting about Zadar. During the meeting, Redfield tried to convince the president that Zadar was a terrorist and that a military alliance with a country led by Zadar would only make the political situation worse and threaten the safety of many people. However, the president insists that Zadar is not involved with the People's Independence Front at all. Moreover, Zadar had become a legitimate politician and was loved by his people, so she decided to form a military alliance with Zadar. On the other hand, Peter managed to find clues to Maddie's whereabouts after cracking the code given by Maddie, and Chelsea immediately informed Monks that Maddie was being held in the container terminal. As Monks and Rose rushed to the container terminal, unbeknownst to them, Ellen was secretly following them. Upon arriving at the container terminal, Monks then told Rose to stay in the car, while he would help Peter and Chelsea, who had arrived a few minutes earlier, to find the container where Maddie was being kept. Because the container terminal was too large and there were so many containers in that place, Peter and the others then decided to split up to shorten the time. Meanwhile, Mateo, who was notified about the appearance of Chelsea and the others, then rushed to the container where he kept Maddie and intended to take Maddie away from that place. But unexpectedly, Maddie managed to break free from her bonds and immediately attacked Mateo as soon as he unlocked the door, then ran out of the place. Mateo tried to stop Maddie by shooting at her, but the gunshot was heard by Chelsea and the others who rushed there. Fortunately, they managed to find Maddie, and Peter immediately dropped Mateo, then handcuffed him. However, when they were about to leave the place, Ellen, who had been preparing in position, then fired at them with a sniper rifle, and managed to kill Mateo, who tried to escape and shot Maddie in the leg. Chelsea then contacted the Secret Service for help because Maddie was now an assassination target. While Monks and Peter distracted Ellen and protected Maddie, Chelsea tried to carry the injured Maddie to their car. But unfortunately, Monks received a gunshot wound to his neck and died. At the same time, Rose suddenly appeared behind Ellen and pushed her to her death. Chelsea and Maddie seemed devastated by the death of Monks, who had sacrificed his life to protect them. The scene then switched to the past and showed Farr, who looked shocked when Redfield told her that he was the mastermind behind the metro bombing, which was actually his attempt to kill Zadar. Redfield argues that Zadar is the mastermind behind a series of terrorist attacks that have occurred in the United States in recent years, and he plans to take revenge by killing Zadar. Redfield added that they had at least 50 warheads in the country led by Zadar, and it would be very dangerous if the president made Zadar a military ally because Zadar could seize the weapons. Therefore, Redfield assigned Farr to clean up the mess while threatening Farr by saying that the incident could harm the president if the truth was revealed. Since Farr is fiercely loyal to the president and will do anything to protect her, she has no choice but to help Redfield clean up the mess. In the present, Rose took Ellen's cell phone and pretended to be her when Wick called her. However, Wick soon found out that Ellen was dead and immediately hung up. Peter then told Chelsea to hurry up and leave because they had to stop the assassination attempt, but Chelsea refused to leave. Upon learning that her father was involved in the metro bombing, Maddie then told them that she would warn the president and the FBI director about the assassination attempt. As the police began to arrive, Chelsea told Peter and Rose to leave while giving them her cell phone. Chelsea told them to wait for news from her, then asked Maddie to keep Peter and Rose a secret from anyone. At the White House, Redfield seems relieved to learn that Maddie survived, but Farr then tells him to dig up everything Maddie knows about the metro bombing, while she will interrogate Chelsea. On the other hand, Wick, who knows that the president is starting to suspect Farr, tells Redfield that they no longer need Farr if Farr is no longer able to the Mrs. President, which indicates that Farr should be removed as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Peter and Rose intend to continue their plan to expose the crimes committed by Redfield and his accomplices to the public by publicizing them through the mass media. To that end, Peter then took Rose to Jim's house and asked for his help to uncover the truth. However, Peter gets into an argument with Jim because they have different views on many things. Even so, Jim insists that he doesn't care whether Peter's father is a traitor or not, because he will still love Peter for who he is. Shortly afterward, Rose managed to hack into Ellen's cell phone and found information about the night agents taken from the Night Action binder. Peter soon found out that the photos were taken from his office in the basement of the White House, and Peter concluded that Farr was the one who took the photos. They intend to investigate by scanning all the badges in the White House, but only Ben has the authority to do so. Later that evening, Maddie, who has arrived home, tells Chelsea that the president and Ben are out of town, and they have to think of another way to warn them about the assassination attempt. As Maddie told Chelsea that she had an old cell phone hidden in the basement, Redfield suddenly appeared and asked about Maddie's condition. Redfield says that he wants to spend some time with Maddie, while Chelsea is ordered to go downstairs because she will be interrogated by Farr and FBI Director Willett. Maddie tries to convince her father that she doesn't believe anything the kidnapper says about Redfield, but Redfield seems to realize that Maddie is lying to him. Meanwhile, Chelsea, who is interrogated by Farr and Willett, confirms to them that she has found absolutely no trace of Peter around the location where Maddie was kept, while cornering Farr by saying that Farr may have wrongly accused Peter of being Maddie's kidnapper. Willett, who knows that Colin Worley was involved in the Metro bombing, intends to investigate further and ignores Farr's advice to focus on Peter. When Maddie secretly goes to the basement to retrieve her old cell phone, she accidentally eavesdrops on Redfield talking to Wick over the phone and learns that her father intends to issue a pardon. After getting the cell phone, Chelsea and Maddie immediately called Peter, who then told them that they had evidence confirming that Farr was involved in the murder of Emma and Henry. On the other hand, Chelsea informs Peter and Rose that the president will hold a secret meeting with Zadar at Camp David. Chelsea concluded that Ben must have warned the president about the assassination attempt on Zadar, and she suspected Farr of being involved with it, so she decided to relieve Farr of all Zadar-related agenda. Maddie then tells them that her father may have intended to kill the president at Camp David because Redfield made a comment about issuing clemency, which only the president can do. The next day, Redfield intends to take Maddie and Chelsea to Camp David, and on the way there, Chelsea encounters the new agents who she suspects are Wick's employees because they are carrying 2 black suitcases. Meanwhile, Peter and Rose came to Farr at her home and informed her about the president and Zadar's secret meeting at Camp David, and also about Redfield planning to issue a pardon. Farr seems shocked to hear that and rushes to contact the president to warn her, but they have apparently cut off the communication, so she can't contact anyone at Camp David. Farr then revealed to Peter that Redfield and Wick had changed their plans and intended to kill her because they thought that Farr was no longer useful if Farr was no longer able to control the president. Upon learning that, Peter told Farr to take them into Camp David and help them stop the assassination attempt. In order to save the president, who is her best friend, Farr agreed to help Peter stop the assassination attempt. Farr tried to convince Peter that she was not the mastermind behind the Metro bombing, but she admitted that she had to cover it up to prevent chaos and avoid any form of threat that endangered the president and the country. However, Rose thinks that Farr and her accomplices are only protecting themselves when their crimes are exposed because they don't even feel guilty when they kill innocent people who are not their main targets, and deliberately make Peter a scapegoat if their plan fails. On the other hand, Redfield and his entourage finally arrived at Camp David, where Redfield then took Maddie to an underground bunker, while Chelsea was ordered to wait in another room and she was watched by Walter, who was one of Wick's employees. Inside the bunker, Redfield revealed to Maddie that he had made many mistakes, one of which was neglecting Sarah until it led to her death, then blamed Maddie for Sarah's death. Redfield then apologized to Maddie and said that he wanted to start everything over and repair their relationship because he really loved Maddie, who was the only family he had. Meanwhile, Peter and the others finally arrive at Camp David, where Farr tells Peter and Rose to wait in the car while she goes in and warns the president. Farr meets with Ben, who informs her that the president will have a meeting with Zadar in 15 minutes, and at the same time, a Secret Service agent named Briggs appears in front of them. Farr, who knew that Briggs was working for Wick, tried to grab her gun, but Briggs shot Farr first and killed Ben. Peter, who heard the gunshots, then entered the lodge, but Briggs had managed to escape. Farr then informs Peter and Rose about the location of the communication tower and asks them to fix the communication channel so they can warn the president. On the other hand, Briggs informed his comrade who was escorting the president, Boyle, and told Walter to set the bomb to explode within 10 minutes. Upon knowing that, Chelsea immediately overthrew Walter and managed to kill him, then tried to find the whereabouts of the black suitcase containing the bomb. Chelsea managed to find the suitcase and immediately rushed to tell everyone in the lodge to get out because the bomb would explode in a few minutes. In the bunker, Redfield tries to incite Maddie by saying that the president is the enemy. Maddie tries to convince her father to stop whatever Redfield is planning, but Redfield tells her that he can't stop it, even if he wanted to. Maddie, not wanting to get involved with Redfield's crimes, decided to leave the bunker, ignoring her father, who persuaded her to stay. Redfield eventually let his daughter out of the bunker and let her die in the explosion that would occur in a few minutes. After killing one of the guards, Peter and Rose managed to take over the communication tower and tried to repair the communication channel to warn the president. Peter, who learns that they have an alternative plan to kill the president, rushes away to stop the plan, while Rose tries to repair the communication channel. Peter managed to find Briggs in the forest and they got into a fierce fight, but 2 military soldiers suddenly appeared, so Peter decided to run away. After Rose managed to fix the communication channel, Chelsea immediately warned the Secret Service agents about the bomb that was about to explode, so they took the president to the helicopter pad. As the bomb was about to explode in a few seconds, Chelsea heard Maddie screaming for help and she managed to save Maddie in time. Upon knowing that Briggs and his accomplices would carry out an alternative plan to kill the president, Peter rushed to the helicopter pad and managed to kill Boyle. Peter then took the president hostage while revealing that Boyle and Briggs had conspired with Redfield to kill the president and told them about the bomb hidden in the helicopter. They initially don't believe Peter's words because he threatened the president at gunpoint, but Peter manages to convince the president to trust him, so the president then tells them to check the cabin. 2 soldiers then boarded the helicopter to check the cabin, and a few minutes later, they warned everyone to stay away from the helicopter just before the bomb exploded. After the explosion, the president was immediately evacuated to safety, while the soldiers immobilized Peter. At the same time, Chelsea and Maddie arrived and told everyone that Peter and Rose had helped them stop the assassination attempt on Zadar and the president. While Maddie and Chelsea went to Redfield in the bunker with the Secret Service to arrest him, Rose went to Farr at the lodge and told her to clear Peter's name and confess her crimes to the public. While Redfield and Farr would be tried for their crimes, Wick managed to escape the country and no one knew about his whereabouts. Sometime later, the president invited Peter and Rose to the White House to thank them. And since they decided to keep their identities secret to avoid attracting public attention, the president then offered Peter to ask for anything and she would grant Peter's request as an expression of gratitude. Upon hearing that, Peter then asked the president to reveal the truth about his father that had been on his mind. On the other hand, Chelsea gets an offer from the president to be part of her protective detail after all the things Chelsea did to save Maddie and stop the assassination attempt on the president. Chelsea then meets Maddie at the cafe, where Maddie tells her that she intends to travel and continue her master's in Rome because she wants to go as far away as possible to calm down. At the White House, Peter finally learned the truth about his father, who turned out to be a double agent working for the United States government as well as the foreign agency. The president revealed that Peter's father had agreed to become a double agent and he was killed by the foreign agent who disguised the murder as a car accident. The president also added that the killer was successfully tracked and killed by Delta Force Operation 7 years ago, but the public would not know that and also the truth about Peter's father. After explaining everything, the president then offered Peter to become the night agent because Peter had all the abilities to become a great secret agent like his father. In addition, Peter can also find out the mastermind behind his father's murder because the night action program can penetrate deeper and reach further across continents. So Peter will get a lot of important information, although he will not get any rewards because the night action is a secret program initiated by the president. The series ends with Rose escorting Peter to the airstrip, as Peter is about to go on his first mission as the night agent. The moral message we can learn from this series is not to trust others easily, especially those closest to us, because those who betray us most are the ones closest to us.